Hello, today I want to talk about the design logic of Art Nouveau. As you probably know, it wasn't called Art Nouveau at the time, it was just this arts and crafts revival that was happening at the early 20th century. So the Art Nouveau things that remain are mainly in homes, public spaces like bus stops, train stations, bakeries, little shop fronts, like a lot of letterboxes. So it wasn't like this organized thing that was like coming from a top-down approach. It was very much like a bottom-up approach, much like the way that plants grow. So the things that remain today are because they're made of durable materials: glass, tile, metal, stone, fabric, not so much. We can assume Art Nouveau fashion was happening in the same way as the architecture, but there's just not a lot of iconic pieces to look to. I think because it was so decentralized, it would have been a lot of like people making clothes for each other, for their loved ones, kind of like what you and I are doing, sewing our own clothes. It's not like they're well documented or well preserved. This is part of the reason I made that video on how to archive your art, because I think fashion kind of just slips through the cracks, especially when you're not part of a big institution or a fashion house. It's easy to assume that like this dress I made will be around forever, but something's gonna happen to it at some point. So archiving. Anyway, so I went to my library and I found a beautiful book on Art Nouveau architecture, and I got my trace paper and started tracing my favorite shapes from the book. I want to design some Art Nouveau fashion, and I figure if I study the architecture, I can extract the design logic and apply it to the fashion. Number one, organic motifs. It's pretty much all plants, especially like vines and tendrils and like these creeping, swooping shapes. It's such a particular way of illustrating plants that I don't think is being done today. So I cut open a flower that I had in my backyard to have a look inside, and drawing it was a great exercise to connect with the Art Nouveau mindset, because when you look at the inside of a flower, you can see like these are the same shapes that people were using to make these Art Nouveau designs. It's like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like these like segments and tendrils and like, it's crazy. Like, cut open a flower, have a look, or even just like observe it from all angles and try and figure out the architecture, like which segments are like locked into which segments, because that's very much the Art Nouveau style, is these like segments that sit together and interlock. And when you look at a flower up close, that is how it's built. Number two is abstraction and line hierarchy. The Art Nouveau architecture never feels like visually too intense or too overwhelming. And part of that is abstraction. So they're just cutting down to the most necessary details, not going crazy with the textures. It's mostly like blocks of color within these segments. And the way that this like coloring book format can be read easily by your eyes without being like all these lines is line hierarchy. If you have some fine liner pens, you can do this right now with the tracings that you made from your Art Nouveau book. This trace paper just makes me happy. It's so nice. You can see like the light behind it. You can also do this digitally in a CAD program by just assigning different line weights. So you've got your entire drawing. You want to outline individual objects. For example, this is an individual object. This entire thing would be outlined, just the outside edge. So when it's sitting on a surface like here, it's gonna stand out from my shoulder. So you wanna have the heaviest like outline just on the outside edges, and then on the inside edges you can draw the main segments. So I would do the line that separates this gold part at the top from this black part here, and again the line that separates it from this gold stem. And then with your finest, smallest pen, you want to do the little details on the inside. So that would be these like rings on the gold and this little line on the brass at the top. That's just a secret I learned in architecture school that makes your drawings really easy to read. Number 3 is vogueing. I don't know what else to call this, but it's like, you know when people do voguing and they like like display their body and their face in like a beautiful way, like framing different like angles and lines. That's what the Art Nouveau designs are doing with the way that the plants are arranged. So it's kind of like they're fanning out and like splaying out and wrapping around and like moving in these unnatural ways that feels very lively, but also frames it very beautifully. The best way to describe this would be with another plant analogy, which is when plants become root bound. If you've ever seen like a plant that's been in a pot for too long and all the roots are like right up to the edges, that's like what's happening in Art Nouveau. Like these tendrils and vines are like moving in like unnatural ways to fit within a space. The best exercise for this is to trace Art Nouveau designs. You could photocopy them, but there's something about the process of tracing them where you understand like the logic and the arrangement that's happening as your hand moves over it. So it's just like a really relaxing way to spend an afternoon, to be honest, and gives you some good ideas for how like things might splay out, like the sunflower that like wraps its leaf up like that. Number 4, constraints of the medium. So for example, mosaic tile requires small pieces. So when you're filling in like a large petal on a flower with small pieces of tile, you get to make a stylistic choice about how those little pieces are going to be arranged to fill that petal, and you get to honor the medium and the motif at the same time. For example, if you were doing a dandelion, you might arrange them in like these radial lines because the dandelion kind of like blows away. Or like in stained glass, you're really limited with the types of curves you can make because when you break the glass, it's gonna like shoot along the path of least resistance. So you can't make like a crescent moon shape and cut out that little crescent on the inside. You'd have to split up the crescent into multiple pieces. I'll insert a picture here of a stained glass I did with my dad that was kind of in like a Art Nouveau, Art Deco style. Because of the limits of the glass material, we had to make some compromises, like putting the line above the beak of the bird and extending it upward. But I think that actually creates a lot of like energy and movement in the design. So when you choose your medium and your motif, you're going to be limited by the medium and the tools, but you can use those limits to like enhance the beauty of the motif. Another exercise I recommend trying is using different kinds of markers to write fonts. So Art Nouveau was famous for having like the most beautiful fonts, and you know I'm crazy about fonts. When you write with different brush markers or pens or paintbrushes, the shape of the brush is going to add little details to the font, especially if it's got like a slant or like a square end or like a pointed end. So write your font and then in a pen trace around the outside shape of that marker, and you'll get fonts that look like the Art Nouveau fonts. Trust me. Number 5 is balance. Art Nouveau is not always symmetrical, but it is always balanced. So when the designs are asymmetrical, they're asymmetrical in the way that a tree growing on the side of a cliff might be asymmetrical, where the trunk's really heavy and it leans one way and all the little branches stick out the other way, and then it also is compensating for like strong wind coming at it, and it finds this perfect balance where it's not going to fall over. That same type of balance is used in Art Nouveau. It appears very like correctly weighted. I think this might be one of the most difficult parts of Art Nouveau design, is making it look visually balanced. So symmetrical designs are probably the easiest to start with because it's always going to be balanced. Number 6 is made with love. It's undeniable. It's like, you can feel it. You can feel that the Art Nouveau was made with a love and respect for the people who interact with it. Because it was an arts and crafts movement, there was probably a lot of stuff being made for loved ones, neighbors, people in your local community, and for yourself, like public spaces that you're going to walk through. So there's a lot of like love and respect in the design that you can feel, and that's why everyone loves Art Nouveau. There's also different styles across different countries, and the culture of each country kind of infuses into this Art Nouveau style. I thought the Spanish Art Nouveau was very indulgent, like heavy on the swirls and flourishes and spirals. And then the Art Nouveau in Belgium and the Netherlands was like a bit more restrained. If you've ever seen a botanical illustration, the point is to like communicate the plant and introduce it to you and show you all its features. I feel like Art Nouveau is the same, where the artists are trying to communicate information to the person viewing it about the plant and its energy and the way that it like grows and moves. I think the line weighting and the segments and the abstraction makes it easy on the eyes, and that also shows a level of love and respect for the person viewing, that it's not like an attack on the senses. So I went through all my tracings and I laid them over an outline of a person's face, and I figured out that the framework it has to sit within is the ears, the nose, and the eyes, of course, because you have to be able to see out of them. They have to be functional, and they also have to rest on the nose and the ears. So that was my framework, and then I allowed for like the plants to move within that framework. I'm not sure what type of flower it is. It could be an iris, but it was like sprayed open. And so the design for the glasses is that the top glass will be a magnifying glass that can swing down when you need it, because you only need a magnifying glass on one side. At least I close one eye when I'm magnifying things. I can't look through two. And then the middle glasses will be blue light blocking glasses, because I don't wear glasses. I only wear blue light glasses when I'm looking at a computer all day. And then the bottom glasses will be sunglasses for when it's sunny outside. And I want it to be like movable, so you can pull up and down the lenses that you need as you need them. So that's my design. My aim is to prototype it and make it in stained glass. Let me know if you'd like to see the prototyping process, or if you want to see a tutorial for how I make them. I'm not sure how long it will take, but I'm gonna try my best. If you enjoyed this video and if you enjoy chatting about design stuff, I'll link a playlist in the description where we talk about biomimicry and different design techniques that you can use to improve your design. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next week.